If you dream of your motorcycle, if your day isn't complete without some time in the saddle, if all you need is the open road and a full tank of gas, well, you've come to the right place, because this is Throttled, and it's starting now. Here is your host, Kevin McKinney.
All right, welcome back to Throttled, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Glad to be here. I was out last week, so we didn't have a live show. Appreciate everybody who caught the Facebook update on that and was able to record that. This week, it's going to be just Tom and I holding down the house. Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a great Sunday evening.
Awesome. So, man, how have you been the last few weeks?
Been doing pretty good. So far, 2020 has started off real well. I got some, I think I talked about in the last show, had a great ride into your neck of the woods, into Alabama. Rode the Little River Canyon. I don't know if you've been up there. I threw a little picture of a sign that I just loved as I was going down the canyon. Threw that up in the community posting on Facebook. And it was a very entertaining road to ride, 275 all the way down. Have you ever been on that?
I haven't been, well, I can't say I haven't never been on 275. I've never been on that portion of it. I think it extends south because you were on the north side of it. So I think you were north of 20, right? Of I-20.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I've never really, out that far, I've never ridden north of I-20. I usually, Mount Cheaha and the Talladega National Forest, where I do some off-road riding and have done some road riding there. On the south side of I-20, I've done that, south of Talladega and everything, but I've never been up to that area. It's something that I want to do. It's just finding the time. I'm planning actually, negotiating might be a better word, for more ability to take longer trips on weekends, and so we'll see how that works. But for now, it's all good. So I really hated that I wasn't able to meet up with you, and next time, if you're ever going to be down again, give me a little heads up, and maybe I can swing out there and us tear up some roads together.
Yeah, it was kind of a scouting run as well. I had a route that I wanted to test out from Marietta, Georgia over there and back, kind of do a big circle. I went through Rome and, through the canyon and down into Century, I guess it's called, Alabama, and then back over to Georgia. So this was, definitely going to, I think, take another group now that I know what that road is like, and I can tell people, it's a paved road in portions in name only. It's as close to getting on a dirt road without actually doing that. And some of the grades were just incredible. There was one turn and hill that I actually passed up the first time, tried to find another route, and then came back and said, all right, what the hell, let's give it a try. What could happen? I'm in the middle of nowhere by myself, so let's try it. I've done that before, so why not? But yeah, I'll give you a yell on it. It was, for me, it was about a 240-mile day in and out of Marietta. Didn't take anybody with me because no one from the riding groups that I'm with would want to go out and ride around for 5 hours in 40-degree weather. So it's just no one will do that I ride with.
Cool. Well, I lost my train of thought. I actually, so this last week, did you get any riding done outside of that?
Just had a commute into the office a few days, and these were, of course, I picked the two coldest days of the year and probably of the whole winter season to have to go into the office. So let's see, it was Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning this week. So Tuesday I thought was cold. It was 28 degrees on my ride in, and Wednesday was even colder, a brisk 22 degrees on the ride in. So those were chilly.
That's a big nope for me, I gotta say.
Yeah.
If it's freezing that's kind of where I draw the line. Like I have ability to ride certain things at certain speeds down to that point, but I'm just no that as of yet that doesn't interest me too much. So
Well, I have to. That's my transportation. So I had
yeah.
to get into the office and just went through it. But those weren't actually the cold. The coldest was I had to go in Tuesday morning, meetings all day, and then we had a business dinner that night. So rode to the business dinner, and I'm dressed, so I have my Aristitch, and I put that in my top case. Went in, had dinner, came back out, and it was about 9ish or so, and about 32 degrees. That was the coldest. Getting into that Aristitch, it was like climbing into an ice cube. And even with my heated gear, it just never warmed up on the ride home.
Well, funny you mentioned Airstitch because I was actually looking at those yesterday. A, they really are proud of their product. B,
Yep.
I was expecting to see them have like, hey, temperature ranges down to, 20, 30, 40 degrees. And the ones that I was seeing, the ranges were like 60 and up for temperature ranges. I was very surprised by that. And was I just looking? I mean, because I went to the jumpsuit section, and it was like the road. What was it called?
Road Crafter.
I
Yeah.
don't know if it was a road crafter. It was like the third version of it, right?
Yeah, it's the R3. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I was very kind of taken back by the fact that I couldn't. I was like, wow, I was expecting this to be like, hey, this is like cold weather stuff. And that's not what I was really seeing.
No, not really. So they come in two thicknesses, or yeah, I guess you can say thicknesses. There's the standard, which is a 500 denier Cordura,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've got the light version, which is a 200 denier nylon Gore-Tex, and they're both Gore-Tex, but they are shells. There's no insulation to them. They'll block wind for you, sure, but there's no heating effect to it whatsoever. It's basically a shell, very similar. I think Klein went in this direction from Aristitch. Is that it's a waterproof shell? It's resistant to if you crash and slide, but all of your warmth has to be whatever you put underneath it.
Okay. See, that's where I have an issue because like I was like, and I was just like looking at it and just to say, so they say that their TF3, which is the standard TF3 provides an optimal comfortable protection balance across average ambient temperatures, 60 degrees Fahrenheit to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius to 24 degrees Celsius. The stiffer TF6 is 70 to 95 or 21 to 35. So I was expecting it to have some insulation to it. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe they have one that has insulation and they don't. That's what I'm kind of like, wow. I mean, I was expecting this to be something else. So that was good for me to kind of know because, if I'm going to be throwing out approximately $1,300 for a brand new one, because I know you can find used ones all over the place, but for a brand new one, which I'm not in the thing for right there, it kind of, it was surprising to me. If all it's doing is really giving you that wind block, which I mean does a lot. I mean that really does help. But if you're just cold nature, then you're going to be cold. So I'm kind of I'm kind of wondering what's the solution for that in a one piece step in design. I like their design. I like the way they do their zippers. I like you can get in and out of it really quick. But I need to be able to get in and out of it really quick, and now I'm done with it. I don't need to put on extra layers that I have to also find storage for on the bike when I'm trying to commute to work on a cold day.
Well, you figure you're supposed to be wearing your work stuff underneath. So even in the 20 some degrees, I still have my work khaki pants underneath. I have my dress shirt on, and yeah, I put a heated liner on top of that. Or some guys that don't have a heated liner might wear a fleece, but it's or you can wear your suit coat. But the idea is that okay, the one piece has all of your armor in it. It's got Gore-Tex, so it's waterproof, it's windproof. Is it by itself going to get you into the super cold? No. As an insulation? No, probably not. If you wanted something more towards that, there is the classic Road Crafter that has a built-in liner to it, so it's just not a shell. And then you can go to they've now got their Transit leather suit back, and then there's the Falstaff, which is their waxed cotton leather.
Yeah, that's the what do they call that?
Wax cotton.
Cousin
Yeah.
Jeremy or something like that.
Cousin Jeremy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
so but I'm looking at this, right, and I'm sure that zipper pattern is probably patented. But I'm like, if you could come up with some electric gear that has that kind of quick in and out, that's a full suit, but you just one plug into the bike, step in, step out. Now you have my attention. So,
yeah, well, see, that's kind of what I do. So I have I've got my heated jacket liner on. I plug that into an extender that I have going through the pocket. I put the suit on and 2 zips, and I have 1 plug that goes into the bike. That's it. I have a remote controller that's wireless. Get to the office, I take that off, and when I had a physical office at my work, I'd just walk right upstairs in my suit and then take it off at my office. But for this particular one, I don't. So I just take it off, roll it up, put it in the top case, and then I just wear the heated jacket liner as my jacket into the office. Throw that over a chair. That's, that works for me. And then I've got my dress clothes underneath.
what heated liner? Do you remember the manufacturer? I was looking at one the other day.
Yeah, I'm partial to Warm and Safe.
That wasn't the one I was looking at, but I have read about it.
They fit me well. They've got kind of expansion sides on the side of the jackets, and I wear their Gen 4 waterproof liner. So the liner itself is also waterproof.
Does it heat at the collar?
I think it does. So it does. I think collar, arms, chest, and back.
Okay. All right.
And then I typically wear a neck gaiter with that anyway, like a one of those tubes, and it keeps me toasty. The coldest that I've ridden in was last year, was about 15 degrees. So this year the 22 came close, and the only thing I can say is about when you're going out in those temperatures is that the road's going to be super a bit slippery and hard, and I try and avoid painted lines. I've learned that when you get into the low 20s, painted lines start becoming. I treat it like ice.
Well, they usually are covered in ice, so they got to totally evaporate. All right. So, would you have anything else to add about your riding other than your commuting?
That was it.
All right.
That was all. Unfortunately, that was it for this week. As far as riding goes, I will talk about it in a little bit. I went to a motorcycle show, but we'll save that for a little bit.
All right. So, what have I been up to the last few weeks? Obviously, 2 weeks ago we did a live show. Then I was out. So first off, I actually rode my own motorcycle commuting to work one day. Forgot to turn on Rever because honestly, I was just so excited to be able to. It was a last minute. Like I walked outside, I'm like, oh, it's warm enough. Ran inside real quick, put on some stuff, and truth be told, I couldn't find my truck keys. So, small problem with that. But I walked outside. I was like, trying to get into the truck, and I couldn't find my keys. And then I'm like, well, really, it's warm enough. Went inside, changed, took off on the bike, which was awesome. Quickly found my keys when I got back to the house later on that evening. So
Okay.
pleasant surprise there, because I was really worried that I had misplaced them someplace else when we were in my wife's car the other day. Outside of that, um, I uh, I was able to get up and attend the BMW Motorrad 2 day off road course again in South Carolina. Sorry, the Spartanburg, Greenville area. This turned out I had a coach that I've coached with a few times kind of called me up the right before we did our last episode, and he was asking me all these questions about what we did, and kind of got me really excited about it. And I started thinking, I was like, well, I wonder how I would do on that bike again. It's a new 1250, so I get a chance to kind of be on the newer 1250 because I was on the 1200 last time, and I was like, I wonder how I would do. So threw in all my extra motorcycle money that I had, and some people gave me some little cash things over Christmas. So just got it under the line, used a bunch of points to get a hotel room, and ended up making a literal last minute Friday call that hey, I'm gonna go up and do this again. My wife very graciously said, have fun. She knows that I haven't been able to ride much, and I've been doing a lot of other stuff to kind of help her out. So she blessed me with being able to get out for a few days. And so Friday after work, I drove up to South Carolina and attended for the second time the BMW the 2 day off-road course at the BMW Performance Center there in Spartanburg. I have to say,
What's that drive up for you? How long did that take you Friday?
Friday, because of thank you Atlanta, 5.5 hours. It's normally a 4.5 hour ride, but here's the thing. My work does a very nice gesture where they let their employees in my area out 2 hours early on holiday weekends. It's usually a free at 3, but for some of us that get there or work through lunches, they're like, hey, just 2 hours early whenever it is. And so I ended up leaving here at like 2, which put me hitting Atlanta smack dab at 5:30. And
that's a great time to go through downtown Atlanta.
Yeah, no, it's not. And so, and 285 was buggered up. I hit 4 or 5 just stops, just come to a stop. And I really don't think I got out of heavy traffic till I got to South Carolina. It's like, I think Atlanta traffic extends to the South Carolina border. I mean, it was insane how bad it was. Yeah, so I finally got there. I got checked into my room, grabbed I think I got like Bojangles, just something to eat. Because I wanted to get up there and have like a nice meal, and I'm just like, screw this. And so got a nice meal. I got Bojangles, sat down, ate, and kind of relaxed a little bit. Got all my gear spread out. So here's the thing. I don't know if when you guys may be listening to this, but last Saturday in South Carolina, it was a balmy 34 degrees and raining all day. Like all day. It started raining that morning, and between raining and it was misting kind of in the morning. So it really wasn't raining. It was just kind of a cold, wet atmosphere kind of thing, didn't have you weren't getting soaked, but you were damp the whole time. As soon as we got through with lunch, it was full on rain.
Oh,
So,
it's an adventure course. You go out no matter what the weather, right?
And I knew this going out there. And so part of the reason what I have been struggling with and still do is mud, right? And if I'm going to go practice in the mud, I want to practice when there's plenty of people to pick up the bike, when there are, and I'm not using my bike. So, if you end up throwing it down or dropping it or something like that, it's no big deal. Well, to me at least. So I ended up being on a 1250 Adventure because, hey,
Ooh,
Why not?
you went for the big boy on the
Well, I was
course,
going
huh?
to get the 1250, and when when I was signing up, she just said, "Well, you've got a 1250 adventure." And for some reason, I didn't think, well, I just wanted a 1250. I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Because I was curious about the bike. So I was like, well, yeah, sure, I'll do that one.
Okay.
Once I got there, they're like, well, I was like, well, I need risers. Like I am, it's like you see some of the pictures, there's like me and then everybody else is like 4 inches shorter. I was like, I need some risers, from experience. And so they went off, I mean, they're great there, right? Once you find that
Yep.
out, they wait till a lull, guy gets on, rises off, risers, comes back, it's adjusted till everything good to go. So we got risers put on real quick. The course since the last time went hasn't changed a lot. What was nice about this version of it is we actually had 5 students register. One didn't show up. And we actually had 2 coaches. A third coach was kind of helping a a coach in training. So like he was kind of overseeing a coach in training. So we actually had almost a coach per person. So like you'd go through an exercise
Wow.
and you'd have a coach per person. And so you'd run one side and then you run the other side and they would be talking to each other like, hey, watch out for this, watch out for that. It was actually it was really great because when you were switching off coaches, they were communicating really well between themselves. All excellent riders. And, but I mean, we started off the same thing that you start off with before. You go out, you get acquainted with the bike, right? You walk around the bike holding it up with one hand. You put it up on the side stand, which, I do that every time I park a bike in the garage anyway, my Tenere. And so not an issue. And they kind of knew that I'd been there before. The riding coach buddy that I was there with, Brian, he was on an 850 because that's what he bought an 800 and he's wanting to get some practice before he takes it off road. So we ended up just kind of doing that.
Okay.
And we take off for our ride, and we immediately start. What they do is the first exercise is just in a standing position, riding around in a kind of a gravel area, and it's a little damp and muddy. So you're slipping a little bit, but it's a gravelish area, so you're not really slipping too much. Riding around, we did left the first day. And, once you're doing that, you're taking one foot, putting it on the back seat, and then sitting side saddle, and then standing on the left peg on your right foot, waving your left foot in the air back and forth, counterbalancing the bike by pushing the bike and, having to offset your weight by making the bike stand up or lean in or
Yep.
everything.
All right, so got a question. So I've done the off-road course there, the 2-day off-road. It was a while ago, and I've also done the on-road course.
Right.
And each of those courses start off, like you say, with those exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Have they ever explained to you why you start off with that exercise? What's the purpose of that whole calisthenics on the bike?
So one thing it is to warm you up, right? Get you kind of moving. It is early in the morning. A lot of us had a long drive the night before, and a lot of people just come flying in at the last minute, trying to get out there and go. And you do have a little bit of class time, but like 10 minutes of class time before you get out there, just talking about here's what we're about to do, and that's it. Outside of that, it's to familiarize yourself with the bike, the weight of the bike, and to get comfortable with the bike. Right, you're learning where the friction zone is. You're learning the balance points, and you're doing it in an area that you're at. You're going below idle speed, right? So it's literally step off. If the bike falls over and it technically high sides you, it's you're just kind of rolling over the bike as the bike falls. Most people, the bike starts to get away from them. They poke the boat out and they just step off backwards. And I mean we had all sorts there, and nobody had a problem with this. But that's what they do, right? And you do it to the left side, then you do it to the right side, and you're going in the same direction, so you kind of get used to that. That was the fun part of it, right? Is you're doing all that. Once you get done with that, let's see, what do we do next? I think we go into. We turns, I think. There's something. I feel like there's something between them. Oh, you're just slow. Just you're doing a slow ride, right? You're literally trying to go at a mall walker's pace, which I heard them say mall walker's pace or go as slow as you could go. So I was like, barely bumping down the track. Not try to brag, but I was going real slow, and they're like, okay, so let's speed it up to a mall walker's pace. So we did that a few times. But that's just because I've had so much practice at the MSF on those large bikes about getting the weight moving forward in the BRC2 that I was like, oh yeah, this is easy. Just letting it go.
Yeah. I think, the last time I was there, I did the same thing as far as they told me to pick up the speed a little bit. I says, this is my daily commute. This is what I do every single day in traffic, is this inching along.
Yeah. And so, and I mean, I'll say this, between this time and the last time, they gave us more latitude well, I'll get that in a second. So we ended up, doing the slow cut. Then we're doing the tight turns. Now the tight turns, when I'm fresh, not a problem, right? You're looking left, you hit left, you start looking right, you counterweight the bike, you take your left, if you're turning right, you take your left knee, show it all the way up into the can, and you hang your butt off, and you really squat down, lay the bike over, bike goes around, and you start setting up for the next turn before you even get really through that turn, right? Not a problem, both on the easy side and the hard side. Here's my problem. When you are 6'3" and you have a 34-inch inseam, there's a tendency that people don't realize you have to go a lot further down and out to counterweight yourself. So you're in a deep squat where a lot of other people are like barely rotating their hips, and they're at the, they can't go any further, and they're just, tippy toeing and they've done it. But for me to counterweight my mass, which honestly right now is larger than it should be, it takes more getting down. And this is what burned me out last time, is how much I did this, and the practicing things. So I ended up, doing it several times, and I told him, I was like, look, let's go. And I told him up front, I was like, look, this burned me out. I know the 3 exercises that just toasted my legs last time, and I'm going to do it for a while. And once y'all kind of give me good feedback, I'm going to sit out a round or two. And then when I see things starting to wrap up, I'm going to jump back in and finish. I'm not going to exhaust myself so early in the day, because I know what's coming. And they're like, hey, no problem. You ride your ride, you do what you got to do. And so that's what I did. I bailed out for 2 laps, jumped back in, did the final lap on the way to the resting, and which was really good, because they were just like, making that, when I was the last one through, they were able to give me a couple of minor, just like, hey, really, sink down into it, which was something that I wasn't doing. I was really leaning out, but I wasn't allowing my legs to sink down and honestly rest on the parts of the bike that I could reach. So, they taught me some other tricks, like when we're standing from a side saddle, hey, if you reach back with your foot, you've got the thing that the bracket that the passenger footrest is there. You can use that as a brace to push off up on. And I saw one of the coaches doing that. So, he kind of told me, he was like, hey, dude, this really helps save that one quad where you're just, you're in this awkward offset position, and you're just trying to muscle straight up without knocking the bike over. You could use this to get some momentum going. And all we care about is you're up on that peg in this position. How you get there, we really don't care. So that was really great. Did the resting, then we ended up doing, let's see, what was the rest of that day? Next thing that we did, after we did a little kind of ride around lap, kind of, they kind of take you on these little adventure laps, enduro laps as they call them. So you're kind of riding around, you're practicing your turns in woods, going between trees, starting a little bit of what you're about to get into. They did a better job of pacing those than previously, and I think that was really good. We went into practicing for ruts, so they had 4x4s, out, and they had a virtual rut that you would kind of go between, with the 4x4s being the side of the rut, and you would go between those. You would go over things like washboards and roads or things like that you'd have to work your suspension in two different ways, letting your body react to that. And, coming out of those ruts and making a hard ride, or coming into a rut, stopping, putting your foot down far enough out to not roll your ankle under the bike, and then getting back up in one motion and taking off, and you're going through all these. So that was kind of the next exercise that we did. And I had a lot of fun like that. And I really appreciated their attitude. The coaches did a fantastic job going through it. So, so that kind of took us, I'm trying to think if that took us to lunch or not. After lunch, did we get into hills up and down? I think that was next.
Or didn't you do like the narrow pathway, like a simulated rut type of
well, that's what I was
ride?
talking about. Where you had the 4x4s and you were going through that.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. You did that, and you did the suspension work during the same exercise. Those flowed really well into each other. I'm trying to remember what we did next. I know there was the hills, and I'm not sure that was that was day one. We were going up and down little mounds, and what they wanted you to do is, you're going up, you weight forward on the bike. At the top, they want to clutch in, front brake, butt back, weight back on the bike, and eventually they wanted you to do a trial stop or a trail stop, however you say it, on the downward face before you took off. So you would do those as you were going, to have control of your speed, right? Set your speed, go over it. Then we went on bigger one of those. We went on enduro laps, and the enduro laps are lengthy. They're not just like, hey, we're going to ride around for a few minutes. I mean, they're up to 15 minutes just of riding around the property, doing different little things. The great thing about this group versus the last one was very, hey, I want to go and do, like, we're riding by all these little hills, and they pretty much said before, follow us. If we don't go over the hill, you don't go over the hill. Mm-hmm. This group was, if we have not gone over that feature previously, don't go over that feature. Once we have gone over that feature, that is now open to you to add into whatever ride. If you're riding by it and we're taking you by it, feel free to go over them. Just do it the right way. And they had, it was literally, when we were doing those enduro rides, it was coach, student, coach, student, coach, student, coach, student. We had that kind of capability, whereas last time I had 12 riders, right, and 2 coaches. And that they were supposed to have another coach there, and they didn't. So that really helped out. So we were able to do some things like that. Again, pacing was great. We actually did fewer enduro runs than I'm used to. I know there's something else we did that day.
Didn't you finish the day in the gravel pit?
Emergency stops. Yeah. Well, no, not in gravel pit. Gravel pit's the second day. We did emergency stopping.
Oh, it was. Okay.
The first day. And so what you start off with is, hey, with ABS on, come up, slam on your rear brake, see how far you stop. Cool. Look how far you came. Turn your ABS off. Same thing. You come up there, you slam on your front rear brake, you stop shorter. Then they say, okay, before you do anything else, we want you to push with your front brake. So they want you to temporarily lock up the front brake, weight back, and feel what happens in the handlebars. Feel the shaking, because there's no audible thing. On the road, you lock up your front brake, you hear you let go, right? That doesn't exist off road, but you've also got a little bit more forgiveness, especially if you're in the right riding position. And so you lock up the front brake, you feel it push for a second, and you let you off of it, and then you're back onto it, and it pushes. You do that 3 or 4 times. Next time, you're doing a full panic stop. So you're flying to there at 30 miles per hour. You lock up the front, you lock up the rear brake, you bring that front in just before that locking, and you stop as quick as you can. And you're sliding the bikes the entire time. So the bike's going sideways, and you're starting to weight it around as you're doing stuff. And that was one that, because of my MSF training, I was able to kind of get okay, hey, look, you don't have to do this anymore if you don't want to. Just because we have an exercise in the MSF, exercise 8 specific, that I normally end up running and riding on the bike. So that whole progressive braking, getting to that point, is just something that over the last 2 years I've been able to really get a feel for. And when it does start happening, find it. That was a blast of a first day. I was able to save my legs. It was sloppy. It was rainy. Did I drop the bike? Yes, I was actually the first person to drop the bike, right? In the tight turns, on one of them, I shifted my weight, and when I did it, my right foot just slid right off the foot peg, and I as soon as that happened, I didn't try to save it. I just let the bike go. Could I have saved it? Yeah, probably. Did I want to risk anything or getting hurt? No. As soon as it happened, I just bailed off, stepped off the bike. No biggie. See, that day, that was the only time I dropped the bike, and everybody in the class dropped the bike. I mean, it was raining, it was muddy, mud was sliding around. The second day I had more trouble. Second day we went to their sandy kind of clay area, and I really, there was a couple times where the guy behind me was like, I have no idea what just happened to you. Like, I'm riding along, and the next thing you know, the bike just right out from underneath me. Little bitty minute maneuvers, and I was too focused on what's coming up ahead than really being loose on the bike. I think I was just too stiff on the bike and had my knees locked into the bike. So when it kind of wanted to wiggle, my weight shifted and just forced it out from underneath me instead of being nice and loose and letting the bike move underneath me and using my feet to balance, which, to be fair, we haven't gone through those skills yet, but it's something that I knew I should have been doing. So that's on me. I dropped it 2 times within 20 feet. And it was just like, are you kidding me here? And they're just like, this is messy. And what happened is we actually had one rider the previous day kind of roll his ankle doing something. And then on this one, he apparently dropped it several times too. And he was like, my ankle, I can't even put my weight on it anymore. So we had one guy bow out at this point in time. Actually, no, that was the first day. That was the first day going after lunch to the next thing. That's when that was. So that was on the first day, because he actually bowed out on the first day. He did come back the second day. And then the second day we started and did the practice thing again. And then they do the whole group and coaches are riding around in tight circles. I did not participate in that just because I knew how much of a leg burn that is. And even the guys that did it were just like, wow, my legs are just toast right now. So I really backed off of that and did not do that at all. I knew what it was. I told the coaches I'm not doing it because I want to save my legs for later in the day, because I do know what's coming, and I want to make sure I can ride that enduro ride at the very end of the day. Because of our small class, we were able to finish up every exercise but one before lunch.
Wow.
But we were moving. Good. And what they did is they limited to the enduro rides to be more connecting instead of roaming. So when you were doing your enduro rides, you were able to practice some things, and they weren't made necessarily as long. And so we were burning through pretty quick. We did the gravel pit. I did not drop the bike in the gravel pit. That was I did a lot. I think once the last time, and I was able to make it through. And the wading, I really did good on that. And they had deep gravel. Like at one point it was like 3 feet deep. The other section's like, a foot deep.
Right.
So really thick gravel, really chunky gravel. Like you would find if you just followed behind a dump truck.
And then how about when you went to the sand pit? Was it muddy or was it still sandy?
So here was the thing about the sand pit that was very interesting. Is the sand pit, when we first went, it was packed down. So think about the beach. You walk to the beach right after it rains, and it's almost firm, right? Now, the more we did it, the more choppy it got. Well, then the coaches are just like, okay, look, y'all, this is too easy for you guys. And so they got into the little cart, the support cart that carries around the beverages and stuff like that. And I'm talking rutted this thing out to where even the coaches were dabbing and putting feet down and stepping off the. I mean, it went from being 0 on a 1 to 10 to 11, you know? And so we ended up playing in that for a while. That was another one where I had 2 coaches watching me, and they're just like, man, you're doing everything right. Great, 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 great. And then all of a sudden the front end just washes right out. And I kind of did this little diving roll off the bike. And they both looked at me, and they were talking to each other, and I kind of got up, and I was like, what did I do wrong? And they're just like, we have no idea. It's like,
Oh,
that,
right.
it's like, we have no clue what happened. They were saying that there was a rut there, that maybe my tire just with the way I was, because what they teach you is if you wiggle the handlebars just a little bit, it kind of helps the bike move where you're wanting to, instead of trying to be, it helps you be loose on the bike. And plus it kind of helps give direction where you want to go. And they're like, maybe you wigged when you should have wagged. I mean, they're literally just like, don't worry about it. I mean, you looked good position. You were doing everything right. You were balanced. I mean, in deep sand, that stuff's going to happen. You know,
I remember when I did that exercise, and very early on, I did a face plant, doing it just like you say. The front end just goes away, and you just go face first. And one of the coaches was standing on the sideline, walked up to me, is like, "Yep, I was exactly where you were looking."
Yeah, I was looking
okay.
up, but I don't know what. And that's the thing, is when you are looking up and something like that happens, you have no idea, right? And so that's why that's what I was looking at.
So we did a neat thing when I did my class. There was a bunch of us. We had 10 or so people. We did race heats across the pit, the long way. Did you guys get into that at all?
We didn't, because there was only 3 of us, and we were all about the same in the sand. So we just played with it a little bit more. But after that, we went and I want to say we had lunch. We came back out. I did say at the beginning of the day we did do some more emergency braking, just to do it fresh instead of being so tired, right? And see how much we improved. And everybody did fantastic on that. We were down to 3 riders at this point. After that, let's see, I know at one point we did the where you're standing beside the bike and you get on the bike. You put one foot peg on the bike, you get off the bike, and then when you get off the bike, you're standing on the pegs and basically putting together that little warm-up exercise you do every day to dismount and mount the bike. So you're standing beside the bike, taking off, and you get off the bike when it's still moving, you stop and you put your foot down. I admit I had a lot, when I did this the first time through, that was like the easiest thing of the whole class. I just went back to, hey, this is like riding a bike when you're a kid. You just get going, whoop, there you go. I had so much more trouble doing that this time because of, I don't know if I just had the engagement point on the clutch in the wrong spot. I'd get going and it would stall, and I had a horrible time with that exercise this time around. And I was very surprised because I thought that was going to be my nice, fun saving grace. And I don't know if it was the mud made me nervous. I did not do good in that exercise at all. And that really surprised me because that was something that I really want to start working on when I'm riding around, is starting and stopping the bike off the side of it. Just because it does actually take less energy to do. Throw at the side stand, take off, throw your leg over, and you're good to go, especially if you don't have any kind of luggage on the side of it. Probably wouldn't do that on the Tenere, but on the KTM, it's not a problem. I struggled greatly with that, and that really killed my confidence. So we keep riding. We finish up today. I'm trying to wrap this up. I know you guys are tired of hearing me go on about it. We finish up by doing a few more exercises that I struggled with last time. This time I struggle with again. And it's just you're going up a hill, down a hill, you do a trail stop at the end and a sharp turn. Well, I could not make that turn to save my life. And that's the same thing that happened to me last time. I hit the right body position, but because I was so tired, I was holding my body up because it is physically a tiring class. But I was just tired, you know. I was holding up and not actually turning the handlebars. And they're just like, turn the handlebars. And I'm in the right position, just going straight, just hanging out the side of the bike. And I was just like, guys, I'm just whooped. I need a break because we weren't really taking our breaks either. We weren't doing our trail rides, but we also weren't taking a lot of long breaks. We took a few, but not like we did previously. Um, and I was just whooped, right? Sore, tired, having a great time, but it just physically, I was about done. And then they're like, hey, all right, so we're gonna go do a little trail ride, and they're like, where y'all want to go? And I was like, I want to ride up and down the hills. And so we went to the big area where you kind of do everything, and we went up and down. So you'll know this. They've got an area where you go up and you do a hill stop. So you go up, you do a hill stop, and you know just kill the bike, stomp on the rear brake, lean forward, and then you back the
Right.
bike off the hill. So you've come up for some reason, you got to stop on a very steep hill. Here's how you stop on the steep hill. If you do the front brake, you're just going to slide back down. Right, so the wheel on the low side of a hill is what you use to stop.
Yep, you clutch it down. Yep.
Yeah, and so we do that. Well, all those hills on all sides, even the really steep one, they let us ride up, and so these are nearing 90 degrees when they get to the top. You're coming over the top of them, and if you got some speed, your front wheel is not necessarily the first thing that hits on the upper side of it. We did those, rode on the ridges, just kind of rode around and everything. We did the seesaw, going up and down the seesaw, which they told me is
cool.
the same. They said that's the same width as a rut. It's actually a rut exercise. It's just about mental looking and balancing and taking that second to let it nose down. So I was able to do that a few times successfully. Riding over some of the 4x4s and keeping the tire right there. I got probably halfway on before I kind of went off one side or another. Basically, if you look anywhere other than just straight ahead, you come off
Right.
of it.
Now imagine when I did that course about 6 years ago, I went into it with zero off-road experience. And took it. So it was great that you guys had all experienced people in there. But
one guy had ridden dirt bikes when he was a kid. The other guy had actually ridden up from South America, and he was just wanting to refine some skills. He was actually like, when we kind of got done, so we did those hills. We rode all around in the woods. We went to the other side and then did all the really steep, rocky like boulder hills that they take all the SUVs on. And all the different off-camber stuff. And I was hitting the hardest stuff I could hit just because I was like, hey, in the real world, this is actually what you're riding on. If you go to Alabama and you ride on the mountains of Alabama, it's a very rocky, there's a lot of, stone in the roads that you're riding over. We've got a lot of areas around here that, terrain parks and stuff like that are close to me. And there's a lot of rocks and stones and things like that. So I was hitting the hardest things that I could come up with and I successfully managed to do all that. One of them, I kind of disappointed myself. It was, you're going down a hill and you have to transition into an off camber and you're on the rocks. And I did that a little late. And so I kind of worked my way down to the bottom instead of being able to stay up on the off camber section. I wanted to hit that one again, but I was just kind of following the leader, and we hit so many other things that it just had a blast. We weren't able to go through their big water trough because of all the rain they had gotten. It would actually swamp the bikes, but there was a lot of other little water areas that were deeper that we did play in and stuff like that. And just rode around, and then by this time there was only two of us, and the other guy was like, hey, I want to go play in the sand some more. And so I was like, sure. So we went back, rode around the sand a little bit more. And then I was like, you know what, guys? I'm calling it. I'm done. I'm content. I had a blast.
Had enough fun.
And I don't want to let my head and my heart get above my ability. I'm getting tired and I need to just call it in. Plus, I've got to get in the truck as soon as we leave and drive home for 4.5 hours. So I need to save some energy. So I called it, and then he came in like 20 minutes later. Enough time for me to get in, change clothes, and then they were coming in. So overall, had a blast. I want to thank the coaches that were there. I know I've kind of went on a lot about this. Some people in the chat were actually asking. It's like $1,550 or something like that to do the course. That's on their bikes. They feed you a wonderful lunch. If it's a Friday, Saturday course you're taking, they feed you breakfast on Friday, Saturday, or the weekend courses. There's no breakfast. The entire time you're there, there's water, there's snacks. There's Gatorade. They are there. If you need something, they get it there. Like I said, one guy rolled his ankle really bad. They have EMS on site that comes over, and if they come over, it's no charge to you. A quick note about this facility, and I did not know this until this trip. Any damage that you do to these bikes, they handle. They don't pay for anything. You're on their bikes. If you completely wreck the bike, which has had happen, they said that people go through the gravel pit and they get gravel caught between the engine and the crash plate, the engine guard, and then they later on they're on something, they case it, and that drives that rock straight up into it. They've had that happen to engines before. They just go get you another bike, no problems. If you go to something like Rawhide, you are responsible for all the expenses. So if you break levers, if you break anything on the bike, you're responsible for it. People can come back from that with $1,000 bills after they've already paid thousands of dollars for the Rawhide venture in California, because they're having to pay for the repairs of the bike. And BMW covers this one in South Carolina. So that's one of the differences. The Rawhide is sponsored by BMW, but it's not really a BMW thing. This is BMW thing.
Yeah, and I will say, doing it on their bikes, especially, when I did the 2 day, I like I said, I had no off-road experience, so I had that bike on the ground 6 times, and I've never crashed a bike before or since, but got very good at throwing that thing down and launching myself off of it for a tuck and roll. But it takes that away as to, oh, am I going to hurt my bike type of thing. It's like, no, you're just going for the skills. And if you lose it, just put it down and get off. As long as you don't get hurt, it's fine. And I will say I did the same bike. I had the GSA. I beat the hell out of that thing. It was covered in mud and grass, and it took the beating in stride. It did great.
Yeah, I mean, as many times as I dropped it, because I dropped it a couple times in the sand, the 3 times outside of it. Those other times I dropped it, but it's more of just I go to put my foot down, not paying attention, and there's actually no ground there.
Yeah.
So that I seem to do that a lot, actually, not just necessarily in that course, but in my personal life too. So, but yeah, I mean, we had a great time. I highly recommend this school. I know there are other ADV schools out there. Whether you're taking this school or not, I know it's expensive, and I know there's other cheaper options that give just as quality stuff. One thing that you are paying for at this school is the experience and the top-notch facility, and they do cater to you. They treat you like a rock star. Yeah. They really do. And I mean, they let us get on the track. I mean, they negotiated with because there was an M class there. They let us take several laps on the track.
Right.
And to say that a GSA can get up to 100 miles per hour in like 4th gear, I'm not going to say that it can do it, but I'm going to tell you it can do it. But at least it did it once for me.
Mine does it quite often.
Yeah, I mean, but it was just you come out and you're just like. I should have to shift by now because I'm in 6th on the Tenere, easy, right? I was like, I should be shifting by now, and it just keeps on. Of course, I don't know the rev. I can't, I'm not used to hearing that bike, and most of the time you don't even hear the engine when you're doing the exercises. So,
right.
Cool thing that I did learn, which I didn't know, is they actually have an advanced course. It's a 1-day course. They also have private lessons, and the coaches are saying for the price difference, and I don't have the price difference here, I'd have to call, but for the price difference, it's better to get some rest, wait a few months if you're interested, and get a private lesson. It's a 1-on-1 or 1-to-4 kind of situation. So if you and a couple of your buddies want to go up and take a follow-up course, I think it's like $1,200 or $1,100 for, or it's in that range. It's not up to the 15, but you're only there for 1 day. But they pretty much say, what do you want to learn? What do you want to do? And so if you want to work on lofting the tire and sliding the real, J turns and different kind of slides and really working the bike and making the bike work for you, that's how you get that extra stuff. And
okay.
it's appealing. I just wish it wasn't as much money. I had a blast. I'm looking forward to trying to do it again in a few years. As much as I want to go do a private lesson, as much as I want to go do an advanced, I just can't budget wise, can't do that. But if I know some people can, and if you can, go for it. And they were telling me that they have people, that train for the GS Trophy, which is a worldwide GS off-road gnarly kind of competition. Really adventure skills at their peak on these heavy bikes. They train there. And so we actually went over some of the GS stuff, and, going over a set of tires is no more difficult than just going over a hill. It's just proper positioning. A lot of it's just confidence in your abilities and knowing where to look and trusting the bike to do what the bike is supposed to do, and not looking where you don't want to go. But I'm going to end it there because I know I've rambled on for way too long. We probably need to start shutting down the show at this point.
Yeah, it's good. I've also done the 1 day on-road course there, and I did that on my own bike. That was fun. And we should probably mention, I know you've alluded to this a little bit, but this is all at the BMW Performance Center in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Yep.
And this is actually, it's also not only BMW motorcycles, but BMW cars. You can actually, if you're buying a car, have it delivered there and go through it. There is an on-road track for the cars. They do a lot of car road courses there. There's an off-road section for the SUVs, and right across the street is the BMW factory where they're making the SUV. So you can also, I think, on certain days, arrange a tour there as well during the week. So it's actually a very neat facility.
Yeah, I mean, from the get-go that it's okay to ride. I don't say thrash, like you shouldn't be intentionally trying to damage the bikes, but they want you to if you need to let the bike go and run it into a creek or a lake, let the bike go and run it into a lake. Don't hurt yourself. They've got 100 more of them,
Yeah.
So I really was a fan of it last time. I told other people about it and they didn't believe me, and that's why this one gentleman ended up going. We had a great time getting to know each other better. We actually coached together here in the next few months, and I highly recommend if you're into learning adventure riding on a big bike, it's a great school. If you're into learning dual sporting on a smaller bike, it's also a great school. There are other teachers and instructors out there, but you're normally on your bike. You're taking the liability for it. You're away from EMS. They're not just moments away. This is in a controlled adventure environment. They're starting to do tours now where they actually take you places, and it's 50-50 on-road, off-road. So what you would expect if you went on a Eastern Seaboard adventure. I don't know how much this costs. I'm sure they're pricey, but and you're again on their bikes. It's fitted for it. One thing I didn't know is the bikes for the school, for the they use the same GSs for the dirt and the street schools. They just change the tires.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So now I'm curious, now that you got to spend 2 days on a 1200 GSA, compare contrast to your Tenere.
So, I'll do this. I've done this before, but it was years ago. So we'll go ahead, and that's a good question. I'll compare the GS to the Tenere, not specifically the GSA.
Okay.
The GS you sit more into. It is a more balanced bike. I think the engine at low RPMs has more grunt to it. It's I think a little bit more tractorable in those scenarios than the Tenere. The Tenere is a great bike. It can do everything that the GS does. There's benefits to having that boxer engine. If you drop it, it makes it a lot easier to kick it back up because it's already at a certain angle. Although you have those heads sitting out there, they're more exposed. So there's a liability issue there. Neither time I've done this have I really messed with the menu system in the controls. You can turn off ABS on the GS. You go through exercises proving that if you're in these off-road conditions, you should turn off ABS. And they even admit that these new models, the ABS is a lot better. And the ranges when people are sliding around, they're a lot shorter. It does a much better job. But even a brand new person who's never ridden off-road can outperform the computer ABS off-road. On-road, leave it alone. It takes, GP racers kind of familiarity with their bikes to be able to outdo ABS. Did I say GPS? ABS. Off-road, turn them off. Every time you get on the bike, turn them off. And they make it really easy to do it. It's just 2 seconds of holding down a button, and you can actually do it. So if you're, you know how you turn on your bike and you got to let all the instruments do all of its thing, and then you have to kind of start turning off stuff. On the GS, as soon as you see any kind of thing on the dash, the light bulb light up for the ABS, even though there's all these animations, you can go ahead and have it turned off. So by the time if your fuel pump is done priming, you're ready to go without ABS. You can do it really quickly, and they're just like, there's really even no point. And because normally it's, if you turn it off by the engine kill switch, the shutoff switch, you leave the kind of the dash on, you're draining the battery, but it remembers those settings. If you actually turn off with the ignition, that actually kills the setting and it goes back to factory default for the ABS. But you could turn it back off so quickly that there's no need to do that. What else?
So with this experience, would you consider a GS next bike?
Well, that's something that I'm torn with. One, I can't afford an X bike, so this is pipe dreaming. Would I take the current Tenere versus a brand new that's been revised 3 times since I came out with the last revision for the Tenere, GS 1250? But here's the thing, KTM 1290. I'm torn between the KTM 1290 and the GS 1250. I like the GS 1250 for certain areas. You're sitting more down in the bike. The weighting side to side is really good. I do kind of like, as long as you don't punch a hole in it, having the boxer engine sitting up there to help you, give you a little oomph and assistance getting the bike up. That's not bad. The KTM, it's got a better suspension from the off-road version. I can't remember. KTM's got so many versions of bikes out right now, I can't remember the one. But the Adventure one, I think it's got a better suspension. It's lighter. And from what everybody they say that it just edges out the BMW in a lot of aspects. But it's you're sitting more on top of the bike than down in the bike. So it really depends on what you like there.
And I've ridden both, and I'd say that's correct. And it's, if you're looking at both of those and trying to decide between the KTM and BMW, it depends on how much of your off-roading you're going to do. If you're going to do 50+% off-roading, I think the KTM is a better, it's more off-road oriented. If you're going to do 10-20% off-road and your other riding is going to be in the twisties or traveling, the BMW has better road manners to it and is an easier bike to live with day to day.
Yeah, that's been my impression from watching videos online. We were on TKC 80s. That's the tire that they use there. But one of the guys who was coaching actually works for Michelin, and he was like, I'll talk to him. I was like, hey, I got these Anarchy Wilds, and off-road, they're actually pretty good. I'm very pleased with them off-road. On the road, though, I get a nasty wobble and, slow speeds. You're, much more so than the TKCs, but the TKCs are also a softer the Anarchy Wilds are radial. They're a harder compound. They last much longer than the TKC 80s. The 80s are a great tire. They have some cupping issues, and the compound's soft, and so you wear through them quickly. So he gave me some tips. He was like, "Hey, try changing your air pressures up a little bit." He was like, add 2 pounds to what you've been riding in your front and rear, and see how that goes. So that's kind of what they said. So I mean, all in all, would I do the course again? Yeah. When it comes down to the bikes, would I get a Tenere? No, I wouldn't get a Tenere again. I love my Tenere. It's been a great bike, but it's the GS and the KTM, especially new, are leaps and bounds. I would say if you lined up the Yamaha, the Triumph, and the KTM and the BMW, the Tenere is going to be at the bottom of the list. Capable bike. It's a classic Yamaha. It's great at nothing, but really good at nearly everything. But when you need something great, it's just, it's like, hey, it's passive. I mean, you can't say it's a bad bike, but there are better bikes. I mean, none of these bikes are bad bikes. None of these bikes are just like, oh gosh, I'm having to deal with a Super Tenere. It's horrible. That's not what I'm saying. It's a great bike. It could do everything these other bikes can do. The other bikes just do them slightly to marginally better. And if I'm paying the money, the Tenere is cheaper, and you can get them cheaper because of it.
Gotcha.
So I mean, a new Tenere probably right now they list for 16. You could probably easily get it for 13, brand new.
Wow. Jeez.
When you look at,
that's cheap.
And I mean, that's just stock, right? You're going to want to change the seats. You're going to want to get some risers, probably change the windshield. You definitely want to change the windshield, and definitely want to change the seat out, or at least figure out a seat option. But it's adjustable a little bit. And then you look at the BMW and the KTM, engine guards, you got to do that on all of them. Well, KTM, BMW, their engine guards cost more. Everything costs more for them. So you can get kitted out easier on the Tenere than the other two bikes. But I'm also thinking, if I'm traveling around the world, not that I'm ever going to be doing this, but if I am, and I have an issue, I'm going to find more KTM, BMW availability than Yamaha.
That is probably a true statement.
And so, I mean, I'm not these guys that have support teams riding behind me. It would just be me and a prayer trying to get through some things.
Well, if you had that, then you can go get a live wire and to take that off road like the other guys did.
Yeah. So are you completely switching gears? Are you excited about Long Way Up?
I'm like so. It'd be neat to, not for the riding. I think it's more of okay, because I don't think it was that challenging to them, at least from what I see, as far as everything that they brought along with them. If I had never known all of their other stuff, I was hoping that perhaps if it was more like Long Way Round, where they spent significant amount of time alone. Long Way Down, the support team was with them probably 80-90% of the time. It was rare that they were alone. And I have a feeling that's the way that this one is going to be like. They're going to always be there.
Yeah. They had the political climate a long way down, and then the couple of the hard things. Here's what I like about that series. It's the struggle, right? It's the overcoming adversity, the fellowship that they have with themselves and the other people they run across. The humanitarian effort to those shows, I skip those. I just fast forward, don't care. I'm glad that they do it. Don't tell me that I don't care. I mean, if I'm rewatching it, I don't need to see that again. So I was just watching Long Way Around the other day. Once they get past Russia, I turn it off. I'm done with it. Because once they get in the States, other than the fact that he gets rear-ended, nothing really interesting happens.
No,
You
I
know,
think they covered the whole United States in 1 hour of the
well,
nine
it was two.
episode
Well, yeah,
series.
two. It was 2 episodes.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's like North America is real quick. Like 1 episode's Alaska and Canada, and the other one is the U.S. meeting the kids, and then I think the third one is them getting to New York and then arriving in London, and finishing it up. Same thing with the long way down. Once they kind of get past some of the struggles in the sand, and they kind of get to the oh crap, what's that country's name? I've actually been there. What is it? Above South America, it's on the west side.
Zimbabwe. Is it
No,
Zimbabwe? I'm trying
Zimbabwe's
to
in the
think.
middle. Zambia and Zimbabwe's in the middle. That's Victoria Falls and all that they do. And they get into some things. And it's really the last few episodes when it kind of gets easier. I stopped watching because the
Yeah.
struggle, I've already seen it. So it's
So
a parade lap at that point, right?
yeah, so I think what everybody wants to see is how did they get those bikes across the Darien Gap? That's the big question.
Yeah. Yeah. And
How'd they deal with that?
the first time I watch it, I'm gonna watch every episode all the way through, and I'm going to try to take a very honest assessment of did I enjoy the series. I'm interested to see the struggle. Is there a struggle? Do they make it, or is the struggle different because of the bikes? We'll find out. So, well, even though we cover no news topics whatsoever, and you heard me blabber about my weekend of riding last weekend. We never really got through the intro of the entire thing. So before we go much further, I'm going to give some credit where credit is due to our Throttle crew members. We've got Autumn, Jerry, John, Rodney, Nick, John, Alex, David, Ralph, Paul, Stephen, Lloyd, Michael, Dan, TC, and Jorge, Randy, Sean, James, Tyler, Paul, Jeff, and Chuck. Thank you all so much for listening and watching the show. We really appreciate your financial contributions to the show that helps us keep the show going. I will say that I have been able to get everybody's Slack emails out. So if you haven't got your Slack invitation and you are a Throttle crew member, check your mail. And if you still don't have it, let me know. But I did get caught up on that. So that's one thing down. I got to get these episodes out. And then I'm going to start sending out the stickers to you guys. And I'm trying to hurriedly get some other stickers made to send out to everybody, which will be a bookkeeping nightmare. I may actually distribute those to the other hosts and let them help me a little bit on that. So we got that going on. Larry actually today is out and about, so he should be back next week. And Chris is hoping to be back next week as well. If you've got any ideas for the show, let me know, or let us know, really, what kind of ideas you have, what you want to see, if there's any coverage that you want us to be aware of. We appreciate it. I do have some local messages that and emails that I need to share in the next mail call that we do. Never really got to that today. I wasn't really planning on rambling as long as I did on the BMW thing. But hey, that is being shooting by the hip, I guess. So I guess that kind of wraps us up. If you need to get in touch with us, there's a couple ways you could do it. You can go to the website, throttledpodcast.com, click on the contact form, fill out that and send it to us. We get in the same email box as sending it directly to feedback@throttledpodcast.com. We really appreciate all of our mail and support from you guys. If you've got any questions or need advice, it may not be good advice, but we can give you the advice we can and or hopefully point you into a way of better materials for that. On Facebook, you can reach us, Throttle Podcast, at Throttle Show on Twitter. And then Instagram, was it Throttle Show? I think on Instagram too. It's sad, my brain is just not working today. Anyway, we'll get that all figured out. So I think that's about everything I've got to run through. Any parting words you have for everybody, Tom?
No, that's about it. I hope everybody has a good week and and ride a bunch. I think, like I said last week, go up to your bike and ride it. It's a transportation, not just a toy.
But it's a fun transportation. There is one more thing. If you do end up watching it on on YouTube, if you end up watching it, do me a favor, subscribe. We'd really appreciate you. And, if you want notifications about when we go on, all you have to do is click on the little bell. But what really helps us is if you watch a show and you like the show, you like the episode, you plan on coming back, just hit that like button. That kind of just helps us show up when people are just looking for motorcycle related content. It can help throw us in there. The more likes we have and the more subscribers we have, it just helps us in that aspect as well. So we just want to kind of get the show out in front of other people, and YouTube is just a strategy for us to do that. That's one reason we started doing it. Obviously, podcasting is still our primary source. That's why you get a podcasting show and sometimes not get a live YouTube broadcast. So just want to throw that out there. So if you guys are ever watching one, I know a lot of people watch them later, just hit that like button for us. It just helps us out, really. We would really appreciate it. Helps us out. And all right, so that's going to be all for me and us. So thank you guys very much for listening, watching. Look forward to next week. We should have more of the crew, I think, representing on the hosting side. And have a great week. Ride safe, everybody, and we'll see you all next week. All right, so everybody in the live stream, thank you so much for participating tonight and a lot of good chat. Sorry we never got to the news, but such is life. If you haven't hit that like button, do that for me really quick one more time. If you've already done it, we appreciate it. I thank everybody for tuning in. I know we weren't very active in the chat. We try to keep our kind of eyes on it and bring it up out of the corner, but we do appreciate everything that you guys bring to us every week. It's hard when there's just two of us to kind of keep somebody always looking at the chat when we're kind of having a conversation back and forth. So I appreciate it, everybody. Hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you all very, very soon. Be careful, ride safe, and we'll see you all later. Bye, guys.
Bye.